Why because of the love to them?
It's squeaky clean as well as
You know, anyway.
yes, that's the
Oh, no, I mean, that's the trouble. You don't.
Everyone, thank you so much for coming out on this really difficult Saturday. So we're going to start off with there's an article on by CNN, and there's 11 stories of the 11 victims of this horrendous massacre that happened in Pittsburgh on Saturday. So I'm from the Glasgow School of Arts and Creative Society. We're going to get from the art students and the university students to read out the story. So I'll start with Irving Younger. Can everyone hear me okay as well? Is that there? Okay. So Irving Younger of Mount Washington also greeted Tree of Life members and visitors with a big smile and a handshake, a friend said. He was a guy that when you walked in, he was the first person that would meet you and help you find a seat. His friend and former Tree of Life president Barton Schaefer told CNN. He liked to make sure you knew where you were in the prayer book. It was his duty. He felt responsible. He felt like his role was to help serve. It was a role that came naturally to the charismatic 69-year-old who had been frequenting the synagogue for at least 10 years. A former real estate agent, Younger used to have an office on one of Squirrel Hill's main thoroughfares. More recently, he enjoyed spending time at one of his sidewalk tables in front of a local coffee shop, where he appointed himself as greeter. Years ago, Younger coached Little League, said Meryl Asman, whose son played on his team. She remembered him as a kind man.
Right, evening everybody. Hello, can everybody hear me fine?
Speak into the middle of it.
Oh, yeah, oh. So I'll be reading the story of Melvin Wax. So Melvin Wax creates his passion with his grandsons, his religion, and the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was always in a good mood, always full of jokes. His sister told CNN affiliate WTAE. The 88-year-old accountant was usually among the first to arrive at Friday night, Saturday morning services. Bonnie Wax said he was well versed in reciting Jewish prayers. The synagogue for him was very important. We always used to kid with him that you should have been a rabbi, she said. Upon learning of the shooting, she immediately feared that her brother could have been one of the gunman victims. He'd always be early, so when I heard this happen, I kind of said to myself, his sister said. I was hoping it wasn't Melvin, and unfortunately, he was one of the victims. Thank you.
So Rose Mallinger, who she was 97 and she actually lived through the Holocaust, which just makes her death so much more horrible. So friends and relatives say the 97-year-old Squirrel Hill woman lived for her family. She regularly attended Tree of Life with her daughter Andrea, who was also injured in the shooting. And despite her age, Mallinger was spry, vibrant, and full of life. To boot, family was everything. She knew her children, her grandchildren and her great-grandchild better than they knew themselves. She retained her sharp wit, humour and intelligence until the very last day, her family said in statements. Family friend Stephen Newston said he fully expected Mallinger to make it to at least 100. The mother of 3 children, with 5 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild, still cooked family meals for high holidays. Robert Friedman said Mallinger was a secretary in her school's office when she was growing up. Then, as in now, she was a sweet and lovely lady who was quick with a friendly greeting and hug and smile. She had a lot of years left, she said. And then there's Bernice and Sylvan Simon. The Simons died together in the same synagogue where they wed more than 60 years ago. According to their 1956 wedding announcement in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the couple married at Tree of Life Synagogue. The bride carried a Bible with white orchids and streamers of sapantoi, and wore a gown of ivory chantilly lace and tulle trimmed with sequins. Their neighbour in Wilkinsburg described them as the sweetest people you could imagine. Jo Stepine said she lived next to the 84-year-old Bernice and 86-year-old Sylvan for nearly 40 years. They were the kind of people who regularly stepped up to help in their small neighbourhoods and in the Jewish community. They wanted to give back to the people and be kind, Frank said. They were loving and giving and kind. Would anyone else like to read one of the stories?
Jerry Rabinowitz touched the lives of many, both as a primary care physician in Edgewood Borough and a member of Dor Hadash, one of 3 congregations scheduled to celebrate Sabbath at the Tree of Life on Saturday. In the early days of HIV treatment, when stigma around the disease was high, Rabinowitz was known to hold patients' hands without gloves and embrace them whenever they left the office if one patient recalled. Michael Kerr said Rabinowitz treated him for HIV in the 1990s until 2004. Back then, for HIV patients in Pittsburgh, he was the one to go to, Kerr said on Facebook post on Sunday. Rabinowitz helped him to stay calm and got him into trials for medications that Kerr believed saved his life. Before there was effective treatment for fighting HIV, he was known in the community for keeping us alive the longest, Kerr said. Thank you, Dr. Rabinowitz, for having always been there during the most terrifying and threatening time of our lives. Susan Blackman said she knew Rabinowitz for 35 years. He was a family doctor for her and her 3 children, and she said she saw him every quarter. He was like a member of the family, she said. I can't imagine the world without him. Rabinowitz was known for wearing bow ties that made people smile to his patients in need. His nephew, Avishai Ostrin, said on Facebook, "You know how they say there are people who just lighten up a room? You know that cliche about people who smile is infectious? That was Uncle Derek," he wrote. It wasn't a cliche, it was just him. It was a personality. The Dor Hadash congregation was like a second home for Rabinowitz, said Deborah Friedman, another one of Rabinowitz's patients. When she spoke about Rabinowitz on Sunday, she started to speak in the present tense, but quickly stopped herself. He was a wonderful guy. Ostrin said his uncle was not in his basement when the congregation was gathered, but outside the room. Why? Because when he heard shots, he ran outside to try and see if anyone was hurt and needed a doctor. That was Uncle Jerry. That's just what he did. Ostrin said if there was a message his uncle would want everyone to take from the tragedy, it would be a message of love, unity, and the strength and resilience of the Jewish people.
Joyce Feinberg. Joyce Feinberg, 75, had a long career at the University of Pittsburgh as a research specialist from 1983 until her retirement in 2008. Her employers at Learning Research and Development Center called her a cherished friend and an engaging, elegant and warm person. She was just as beloved by PhD students of her husband Stephen, an acclaimed statistician who taught at Carnegie Mellon University for 36 years. He passed away 2 years ago after battling cancer. The couple opened their home to Stephen's students and treated them like family. Former student Jason Connor said, Joyce would send cards to her husband's students long after they left Carnegie Mellon, Connor said. She was a very petite woman, but lit up a room with her huge personality. We weren't just welcome in the classroom, but into our home, Connor said. Everyone says this, but she really was an enormously caring person. She had 2 sons and was also a grandmother. Conant told this to CNN. Feinberg grew up in the Holy Blossom Temple in Toronto. The temple said on its Facebook page, she lived in Pittsburgh's Oakland neighborhood, not far from Squirrel Hill.
Richard Gottfried. Richard Gottfried was Jewish, and his wife, Peggy Ratko, Catholic. Together they opened a dental practice in 1984 and helped prepare other interfaith couples for marriage throughout the St. Athanasius Church. In 1996, the couple joined the Discovery Study Club, a local group as part of an international organisation of dentists and specialists who offer educational lectures and workshops in dentistry. According to the practice website, the couple was a fixture at the community of Ross Township. North Hills Schools District Superintendent Patrick Manierial said, Gottfried, 65, was the district's dentist for a long time. We are deeply saddened by this tragedy, he added, and our thoughts and condolences go out to all of those affected, including Dr. Darachko and her loved ones.
Daniel Stein. Joe Stein and his father Daniel said his father Daniel was a simple man who did not require much. The news of his death left their family devastated. Our lives now are going to have to take a different path, one that we thought would not happen for a long time. The 71-year-old retiree lived in Squirrel Hill with his wife. Hal said he and his family were shocked by his uncle's sudden death at the synagogue, where Stein went every Sunday. He was a great guy, Hal said. He was a fun guy. He had a dry sense of humor and everybody loved him. The brothers Cecil and David Rosenthal. The brothers were inseparable, said Chris Scott of Pittsburgh, of Achieva, a Pittsburgh non-profit that provides support for people with disabilities. The organization worked with the brothers. In a statement, they described them as extraordinary men who had respected members of the Achievers community. Cecil's laugh was infectious. David was so kind and had such a gentle spirit. Together, they looked out for one another. Most of all, they were kind, good people with a strong faith and respect for everyone around. According to their obituaries posted by the Ralph Sugar Chapel, Cecil was a devoted Tree of Life congregant. David worked for Goodwill Industries and was described as a hard worker who was frequently recognized for his dedication. Laura Burnman, the cancer's Temple Sinai, said Cecil was a beautiful man and a sweet, gentle soul. The kindest soul you would ever meet, she said, a smiling face. He was one of those embodiments of the community, just open, warm, smiling, wanting to help, and just in his beautiful simplicity. That's who he was. And those were all of them. And so now we're going to hear from Professor Henry Mears. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Friends, I'm just back from New York where I was working last week, and this has had a traumatic impact on America, on American Jews, and indeed against all those who oppose racism, anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. And let me say that American news, which gives these kind of events round-the-world coverage, are reporting initiatives such as this that are taking place all over the world. And I'd like to thank the art students and Glasgow University students and Stand Up to Racism who have organised this event. Well, Remy says that my voice is loud enough, so I hope you can hear me without it. When Robert Bowers went into the synagogue shouting death to all Jews, he was reflecting a particular outlook of Nazism in America. But he didn't choose that synagogue completely at random. That synagogue was part of a network of synagogues which have formed an organisation called HIAS, H-I-A-S. It's called the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, and they give support to immigrants. They had already given their support to the Hondurans who are marching towards America. So he chose that synagogue to kill those Jews, not just because he was anti-Semitic, but because he saw that as his quest of anti-immigrationism. And it's been a culmination of a number of events that have happened in America. About a year ago, many of us will remember the march in Charlottesville, where torchlight, swastika-bearing Nazis and their supporters marched through the town. The Jews on that Friday night, the Sabbath night, in Charlottesville, in the synagogue there, were only saved because the police got them out the back door and told them that they shouldn't march, they shouldn't go out in Charlottesville over the next few days, particularly if they were wearing their skull caps, because there were Nazis in the town. So it's not a total surprise that there have been more anti-Semitic attacks. But we have to lay the blame, I think, also with Donald Trump and his ilk. Trump has launched a campaign against George Soros, the financier who has been funding pro-refugee organisations. He himself, of course, was a refugee from Hungary, and he supported pro-refugee organisations. And the campaign against Soros in the USA and Hungary has been anti-Semitic in a way that we haven't seen from the 1930s. Caricatures of Soros with a hook nose, statements about Soros being against the American people, or indeed in Hungary against the Hungarian people. And these leaders have created this space whereby the deranged people like Bowers feel that they can get away with the kind of things that we've done. And that is why I think we have to be absolutely clear that the Nazis, the alt-right organiser-in-chief Steve Bannon, who's coming to Edinburgh on the 14th of November, should be told in no uncertain terms that he is not welcome. Nicola Sturgeon has already pulled out of the meetings where she was to speak at the same organisation, and if he doesn't get the message from that, there should be the biggest possible protest against him. Because what Bannon is trying to do is organise all these alt-right movements into a worldwide, if you like, alt-right force which will be strong in every country. And it's been fascinating and shocking to watch the Pittsburgh Jewish community, who have understood the role that Trump has played in this event. That the relatives, some of the relatives that Tony and others were reading out, have said that Trump's not welcome in Pittsburgh. He's not welcome until he withdraws the comments he made about Charlottesville, where he said the racists and the Nazis who were marching and the anti-racists who were opposing them were both, part and parcel of the same problem. And we have to completely oppose that. The other ridiculous thing he said, which angered the Jewish people in Pittsburgh, of course, when I was over in New York, he came out and said that what we need, of course, are more guns. That if these 70, 80 and 90-year-old Jews had been carrying weapons, then the Kalashnikov carrying Bowers wouldn't have been able to kill them. And this, of course, angered the community completely as well. Any mass murder committed by people who find it incredibly easy to get guns in the USA is always the next stage by the gun lobby and by Trump is always, no, we need more guns, not less guns. And I think that it has also been moving towards the vigils in various parts of America, and particularly in Pittsburgh, where the Muslim community, who suffer from Islamophobia and Islamophobic attacks have been one of the first groups to come out and condemn this attack and to be out there and support the Jews in Pittsburgh. And that is very, 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 very welcome. Very, very welcome. That kind of unity against racism and fascism is exactly what we want. Let me finish by saying that I think there has been a vitriolic campaign to suggest that those people who support the Palestinians or Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party or the left in general are anti-Semitic. I think we have to say we support human rights. If you want to look what anti-Semitism looks like, you see it in Pittsburgh. And therefore, that's why we deny entirely that by supporting Palestinian human rights, we are in any sense anti-Semitic. The Islamophobic, anti-Semitic racists are the real perpetrators of hate. And so I think we need to say solidarity with Pittsburgh's Jews and indeed with the whole community there who have condemned it, and understand that this is a wake-up call to all of us. We have to redouble our efforts against anti-Semitism, racism and Islamophobia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out on this cold night. I just wanted to call a minute's silence for the victims of the massacre. So we can just have a minute's silence now. Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to say that this is obviously a time for mourning and a time for reflection, but it is also a time for anger and for standing up for what is right. There is an enormous march demo rally that's happening in London on the 17th of November. If anyone can get down to London, we need to show as much solidarity as possible. There is also one in Glasgow on the 24th of November, so obviously that's closer to home. But if you can find all the information if you just search Stamps to Racism on Facebook. It's imperative that we come together and we stand up to hate, we stand up to anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, racism, fascism, bigotry. And I just wanted to say that wherever you see racism, please challenge it. And even if your voice shakes when you're doing so, just any time you say it, just please, let's all do this. Okay, thank you so much for coming out.